Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our Paws on Netflix podcast.
Today we're covering the new He-Man series on Netflix, which is called Masters of the Universe Revelation.
And this series is said to be a direct sequel to the original 80s cartoon. And this time, Skeletor is deadlier than ever. He's wiped out all the magic in the universe, taking He-Man and himself with it. So now Teela and her crew must go on a journey to restore magic to the universe.
Yeah. Before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click notification with updates on future podcasts and Multiple Pause videos.
And He-Man.
Yeah. So this one has been coming up for a while. We were supposed to see something last year, and there was like nothing really for the Comic-Con they had at home. You barely heard anything about it, and then earlier this year they finally revealed some more things, and then we were introduced to a trailer, and then finally we got the show near the end of July. And the thing with it was people were really excited for it because a lot of people love the She-Ra series.
And we're also really excited because Kevin Smith is attached to it.
Right. And you know, he's a huge fan of many different pop culture movies and series and franchises.
And superheroes. I mean, you say Kevin Smith, superhero is just synonymous with it.
Right.
Because of his love for his entire life.
Right. So for here, they decided to do something more differently. And according to Kevin Smith, he wanted this to be a more mature version of He-Man, more adult, because he considered the other one a little too cartoony. It was supposed to be for kids, but for him, he would like to see it take more risks, especially with Skeletor. So he decided to have Skeletor be a bigger threat than he was in the original, even though he kind of was, and have the higher stakes in here like you would with other shows to match up to the taste of what people have now.
And since the He-Man audience, the original audience itself, is probably older, well, of course, we're older, and maybe also capturing a newer audience of those who did not watch He-Man originally.
Right. And for here, yeah, they definitely try to go much darker with this. They actually show a bit of blood. They show more fighting. No one swears, but they go heavier with the action and the themes. And it's not an MA series, but they definitely are trying to go as much as they can to make it more of an action-y show.
Definitely. And to start off, he hired a stellar cast to voice the characters. You've got the comparable Mark Hamill as Skeletor.
Right.
Sounding a lot like Joker at times. You can hear it come through, but no one beats him being the bad guy.
Right.
So, perfect casting for Skeletor.
Right. And Chris Wood as He-Man / Adam.
Who you may not be familiar with if you have not watched the Supergirl series. He portrayed Mon-El in that series.
Right. And I think it was named Sarah, what now?
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Thank you.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer's TV series star.
Right. Thank you. As Teela for this version.
And Daphne on the live action Scooby-Doo movies.
Yes.
Prior to Scoob.
Yeah. Right. And they also showcased Phil Lamar, who showed up later
as Hero.
That was funny. And quite a few other people in here, whether they were TV stars or voice acting stars. They had quite the lineup of people for this series.
Right, and we're sure there are more to come for part 2, but these are the ones that stood out for part 1.
Right. And part 1 is only 5 episodes. We don't know how many parts are going to be. It might be 2 to 3. So they can finish it. Because this acts as a conclusion to the He-Man cartoon. Like, who will finally win overall? There's always been a constant back and forth between He-Man and Skeletor. So this is supposed to conclude the storyline from the original on who will finally win both halves of the swords.
Right. It starts off pretty powerfully. The first episode, you get your action right away, and as anyone who has been on the internet already knows what happens in the first episode, so no spoilers here. Skeletor dies and He-Man dies.
Yeah.
Coming out the gate, and you're stunned when you're watching because you, of course, absolutely had no idea, because they were very good at keeping silent on the majority of things that are to happen, which is a good thing, because so many times the whole plot and all the events that are going to be a surprise or monumental, they're spoiled for you, and you already
Right.
know it because they talk about it so much, but they didn't talk about this, so
Right.
it really was surprising and monumental. And you can understand, well, how is the show going to go on, and you've taken out, the two main characters.
Yeah.
But it does.
Right. And for here, it focuses on Teela, and it kind of shifts in its tone. I mean, it's still a very serious show. It doesn't go to comedy or anything, but the tone becomes extremely different with Teela as she becomes the focus, and I guess the key to saving the universe and how to, restore balance to the world, of course. And for here, a problem with her character in here was that she acted completely different to what you had seen in the previous two incarnations. She seemed a lot more rough around the edges, a lot more forceful, and she doesn't seem to be at first that disheartened about the extinction of He-Man / Adam, because during this she finds out that Adam and He-Man were the same person, even though it's kind of obvious. And she doesn't seem to be she seems to be more upset over the reveal of the secret identity than him sacrificing himself.
And what was really different about that, for those of you who watched this, is according to this version, everybody on Eternia knew he was He-Man,
Right.
except Teela. And she was like, everyone knew but me. Everyone knew but me. And as you said, she seemed really angry that she was left out of the loop.
Right.
And it was kind of odd to see that take on it, because at the time that he gets taken out, he chooses to not be in his He-Man form as he expires, but to be Adam.
Right.
And that's how she finds out.
Right. So then there becomes a time skip, but they don't tell you like how much time has passed.
But before that, we have to mention that some of the favorites were there. Orca, Man-at-Arms,
Cringer.
right? The King and Queen of
Right.
Eternia.
Right. They were kind of missing some of He-Man's friends, like the ramming guy, and quite a few other people were sort of missing. I don't know if they show up later, maybe in part
Possibly,
2, but
yeah.
they were oddly absent from the first episode and all of part 1.
Right. So, with that being said, as you said, there's a time jump.
Right. And Teela's now with another woman, and they're sort of doing this sort
Andra.
of Andra, yes. And they sort of do this Tomb Raider style adventures, and she kind of just gets money from doing that. It was like, that's pretty much an odd way to go, but okay.
That kind of reminds me, now that we're talking about it, if you watch Legend of Korra, during her time skip after she got hurt, and she was gone for a while, and remember Bolin and Mako and other people were writing her, but she refused to respond to anyone. Then we find out during that time she was doing battles and fighting in the ring.
Right.
So for me, this reminds me of that, because she takes the same approach. She disappears. The Man-at-Arms and Orca are banished, and she banishes them from her life as well. And as you said, she's going around doing these for hire jobs.
Right.
And that reminds me of Korra and Legend of Korra.
Yeah. So with that, you find out that Evil Lyn and the Sorceress are working together. It's up to them and Teela and Andra to help them bring back magic to the universe. They need to find the two swords, they combine them and it'll restore the magic.
And
because everything's draining from the universe and people are losing their power and becoming very weak.
And at first she has an attitude like, why should I help? Why should I care?
Yeah, I was like,
why should I believe you?
Which
And
made
these
no
ones-
sense.
Right. So once they convince her that this is real, this is not a trick, and that they really need her help, and some other things that are said, she goes along to help. And they find out that Orca has been ill,
Yeah.
and Man-at-Arms has been trying to recuperate him.
Right. And with Orko, his character's been a little altered as well. After what happened with being banished and the magic being removed, his character is no longer the partially helpful comic relief. He's sort of just there and withering away, which was a little shocking until they end up leaking that Kevin Smith had stated that he really didn't like Orko in the original show because he felt he was very annoying and in his words, babyish or something. So he decided with the character to change it up a little bit, I guess to have him be more stand out, which was, I guess, you know, everyone updates the character, so if you want to see Orko doing more action, it would be fine because, you know, we want to show him doing more magic, but they want to show, I guess, him being a friend, not just doing the magic, but, you know, talking with the others besides just Adam. Because he ends up talking to Teela, and actually Evil Lynn, he ends up having a sort of almost friendship with her.
And then we won't tell you everything that happens along the way. But again, if you've been online, it's not a secret. He no longer is a part of the series, and will allow you to watch it to find out more what happens to him. He basically was, in a way, given a hero's departure.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not what we were expecting, and I don't think fans of the show were expecting him to be removed.
No, and neither were we.
I said fans of the show,
yeah.
So, no, we didn't expect it, but he was given a hero's farewell, and he wasn't taken out in a way that was demeaning or that made fun of him or anything of that nature. The thing that was a surprise is that we were given a backstory that we think was created for the series.
Right.
And for that backstory, we'll let that be revealed to you as well when you watch it.
Right.
But it was unlike anything we expected to hear for his backstory, including that Orko was not his name. He had a totally different name, Oracle.
Right.
So
that was pretty an interesting addition to the lore. So always good to have that when they do these revivals and things.
Right. So after that, they work together.
They actually end up teaming up with Evil Lynn and Beastman.
Yes.
And
it seems like they've saved the day. And that happens as, again, a lot of this is not spoilers because it's been all over the internet.
Right.
They end up having to go to Eternia Hell to get half of the sword, and then they have to go to Eternia Heaven to get the other half.
Right.
And then we're reunited with He-Man in Eternia Heaven.
Right. And with this, we also have this other character besides the hero we mentioned with Phil Lamar. We also had another character who was sort of like the C-3PO of the show. It was a robot that Man-Arms built that was designed after him in his youth. It was actually a little interesting on all his purposes to handle with the swords. If they get the swords together, they would have to have someone try to form them together.
Yeah,
so
but he was not in Eternia Heaven.
Right.
He was traveling with them.
That's correct.
So we want to
That's correct. That's correct. I just forgot to bring that up earlier.
Now in Eternia Heaven, we also get to see Grayskull is there as well, and some other heroes of Eternia, and they're in this paradise to stay and be happy for eternity.
Right.
And He-Man looks very different there. Well, first of all, he kept his form as Adam at the time he departed, so he still looks like Adam, but he looks different. He looks calmer and happier, and you're seeing that they're having a great time being in this place. And technically, they shouldn't have been able to get through, but they find a way to get through. Adam's surprised to see them, and for some reason, after all this time, instead of Teela being happy to see her friend, she's angry still.
Yeah, and a lot of people were thrown off by that. It was like, he did a hero sacrifice. Why would you still be angry at him and he's no longer there? You went on this whole journey to bring back, to actually see him at this point and to get the swords and everything, and it was just so out of character for Teela, just for anybody to be angry at somebody who was gone and made a sacrifice to save the universe. How can you be mad at somebody that saved the universe? It was just the weirdest thing I think we've seen so far a character act.
So a lot of the stuff ensues, which we'll leave as a surprise
right.
for you. But basically it comes down to He-Man finds out what has happened. He decides he wants to leave, and they tell him, and Grayskull tells him, you know, if you make this choice, you can't come back. And if something happens to you a second time, you won't come here. And he makes the decision to follow his friends. Teela's happy for that, and he follows his friends, and a battle ensues, and just when it looks like the day has been saved,
right,
Skeletor hops out of Evelyn's orb that she carries
somehow
around and stabs He-Man.
Yeah, and then it was like, what?
And it was such a jarring and shocking moment. You definitely didn't expect it, and you were like, what? Oh, where did he come from? How did he? You were stunned. There was no way that you sat there calmly when this happened because you didn't see it. This was one turn of events. You didn't see company, and it was all coming. It was almost like a jump scare.
Yeah.
Because you literally jumped when it happened because you couldn't believe this is happening. They said he couldn't go back to Eternity in Heaven. Oh no.
Right. It was. Yeah, they didn't see that coming.
So Skeletor gives his monologue. I was hiding in here all along. I'm sorry to deceive you, Evelyn, blah, blah, blah. And he turns to this giant hulking figure and he says now he has the power and he's got the sword. And what was a little confusing about this turn of events is prior to that, Evelyn talked about how she didn't know him, I guess, and he didn't appreciate her.
Yeah,
and she hated men and all this garbage. And then when he tells her, come with me, la la la, and she
goes with him.
She goes, and I was just beginning to like you guys. And it's like,
what?
And
you
she
just
goes with Skeletor.
Like, you just went on this thing with Teela. Both of you, apparently the thing they had in common was that they liked both of these guys, but in the end they didn't get them because so-and-so, and it was like, wait, we didn't even catch on the original that Evelyn had a thing for Skeletor. Right. You kind of figured Teela liked Adam. You kind of figured that anyway, but her and Skeletor was sort of like, I didn't know that was there to begin with.
I think it was inferred because what woman would stay around with this guy, be loyal to him the way she was and all these things, living in the castle with him and they not be a ship. So I think it was kind of inferred, but it was a kid's show,
right?
So they weren't going to put that out there.
Right.
But yeah, I think being an adult, yeah, she had to be with Skeletor.
Yeah.
So the thing about this that really just had the internet up in arms is that people assumed that He-Man was dead. But I remember I kept telling Rascal, they didn't show him dead, and they didn't say he was dead. I don't think he's dead. And I remember you kept saying, but he's dead. I said, I don't think so, because they haven't established he's dead. I don't think he's dead. And on top of that, I don't think Kevin Smith would take on a project to do He-Man, a superhero, regardless of whether he watched the show or not, or liked the character or not, and have a hero die off and the villain wins. It's just, that's not going to happen in Kevin Smith's universe.
Right. That's why we know there's a part 2 coming, of course, which will be out very soon.
And we're looking forward to seeing how this is wrapped up.
Right. How will he decide to end the series after 40 years of it being off air?
And then, just to make sure that people understood, hey, He-Man isn't dead, Chris Wood was interviewed by Variety, I think it was, if I'm mistaken. I'm sorry, guys. And he said, just so you know, He-Man isn't dead.
Right.
And I think they thought that was going to stop all of what was going on, but it didn't seem to help. Again, we want to see the entire series before we give a final opinion on what we think. So far, it's been surprising at many points. It didn't go as we expected. It has been entertaining. The animation is fantastic.
Right.
And we really are just curious to see how this is all going to turn out. So, from what we understand, part 2 comes out in August. And we're looking forward to see how this is going to be wrapped up.
Yes, definitely. And so, be sure to like, subscribe, and click updates on future podcasts and multiple videos.
And part 2 of our review on this Masters of the Universe Revelation series. What do you think is going to happen? I have my theories, which I've told you. And I'll share in a moment.
It'll be a comeback. Like, they're going to have them as the lowest point. Like, maybe the lowest point that they could possibly get the character, and then have them make a comeback, and with everybody, joining together, like when they do those series finales.
I think so too. And I also think on top of that, that Man of Arms is going to be the one who brings him back to health like he was doing for Urko.
Yes.
And I think that is going to play into it. And as you say, that, yeah, it'll be like in traditional comics before now, you would have the hero be at his lowest, and then he'd fight his way back, and then it'd be a big team up, and they save the day. Kind of like with Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
And that really did take from the traditional take of comic books.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I think is going to happen.
All right. So let us know what you think of part 1 of He-Man Masters of the Universe in the comments, right?
Right. If you watched it, and if you haven't watched it, it's available. You should give it a try. Last thing I want to mention is there is an after show that is separate from the 5 parts in another Netflix, as another Netflix choice, and you should watch it. It's about 27 minutes or 27 to 30 minutes long. It's got guests from former voice actors from the original series. It's got all of the voice actors that appear in the first 5 episodes appearing, and it's fantastic. If you watch CW and you saw the after shows for the final crossover that they had last year, it's like that, and it's fun and it's amazing, and it also gives you some clarity on some things you may be thinking about this series that are necessarily not what's happening, but it's definitely worth the watch. So go ahead, watch parts 1 through 5, and then head over to the after show and watch that as well, and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Right. So, thank you so much for watching. I'm Oscar Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace. I have the power.